Hi, hello and welcome to Film Companion South. This is Between the Lines and I am Ashameera. The movie this week is Election, directed by Seththumaan director Tamil. The film has Vijay Kumar, Preethi Asrani, Pavel Navageethan, Maryan and many more people in major roles. There's a trend in Tamil cinema that if you've noticed, or I'm not sure if you've noticed, that there are directors who make breakout films as their first films. These films tend out to be very creative, authentic, not in the commercial meter or with the commercial aspirations at all. It's more a reflection of who they are creatively, and it's an authentic reflection of what they want to say, and that film becomes a success in the sense it's either critically acclaimed or it earns box office money. And then when they make their subsequent film, there is this pressure or there's an expectation now that they have to meet the commercial sensibilities. If they don't, then they'll be framed as a niche filmmaker, or they might not get the budgets that they are aspiring to, or they might not get the stars that they want. A lot of these concerns sort of creep in. So these are, I am not saying that these are not valid concerns, these are absolutely valid concerns, but the challenge for every filmmaker becomes a tussle between maintaining their own voice and then meeting the commercial mainstream sensibilities. So let me be clear that I am not saying that these are not valid concerns. These are absolutely necessary concerns that directors have to keep in their mind to ensure that their work reaches their audience. I am not saying that. I am not even saying this as a criticism also. This is more of an observation. But if you take the case of Election, I feel this is a film that's caught in the crossfire between these two schools of thought, where there's one and need to meet the mainstream sensibilities, which means there's a certain expectation to approach a certain topic in a certain way. On the other hand, there's a very, very real personal need to maintain the voice, to maintain the authenticity of the creator himself, and in between these two, I feel Election gets lost somewhere. This film's director Tamil made his debut with the very hard-hitting, evocative, poignant Seththumaan, which I remember for its unvarnished honesty, in the sense that it made me feel so much, despite taking a very limited premise. The plot is very, very simple, but the emotions that it evokes are very, very deep, and it's never black or white. He tries something similar here in Elections, where he sets the story in the local body politics or the electoral politics in the local body elections, and the different tangents or the different parties interested in having the political clout or the seat in this particular constituency. The main disadvantage of Election is that it tries to tell too much and it takes too much time to establish what it wants to say. Like, for example, there are different groups vying for the seat in question in this particular constituency. On one hand, there are two people who are already powerful and who want to maintain that power. They're wealthy, they're from privileged communities, and all they want to do is maintain the honor or protect the honor of the family. And on the other hand, there is Natrasan, played by Vijay Kumar, and his father, who've been involved in active politics. They've been working for the ideology all their lives, but they've never gotten a seat at the table. They've never enjoyed the power, or they've never even been in a situation where they can have an iota of power or make a decision. And then there's the third group, where people who are just absolutely ignored. These are the oppressed communities where they have to be heard, they should be heard, but they have not gotten a seat at the table at all. They are not even heard when it's not the elections. So Elections captures a tussle between these three groups and the dynamics that happens between these three groups in terms of who gets the power and who should. But the problem is that this film ends up being overstuffed. In an attempt to tell everything, it takes too much more than it can actually bear, and it loses our attention. It also loses the mainstream of what we should follow and who we should root for. Election is definitely well intentioned in the sense that it wants to say a lot of the right things. It wants to point out the right issues. But the problem is that it takes so much more than it actually can bear. It feels very overstuffed, and in the process of telling everything, it makes us lose the focus on what we should really follow and whom we should really root for. Usually our films tend to have the curse of the second half, where the film starts off really well, it has a great interval, and then it sort of loses its steam and its plot. But with Election, interestingly, it seems to have the curse of the first half, where the film starts off on a very weak note, but slowly and steadily inches towards the place where it wants to be. Remember the balance that I spoke about earlier, the balance between the authentic voice and the cinematic sensibilities. The film sort of gets close closer to that space in the second half. But the first half that we've seen is definitely not the setup that is required for the second half that we are seeing, and that turns out to be a major problem in elections. For most part of the film, we watch a world where politics is individualized, where we are seeing a bad man or a grey man, trying to get power, where we are supposed to root for a good man who doesn't get the seat at the table. But towards the end of the film, the narrative is sort of turned upon on its head, where we suddenly given a very idealistic approach, saying that politics is supposed to be for the social justice. It's not supposed to be about who you are as an individual or about your family or anything. This is a great message, definitely, but unfortunately not the film that we were watching until now. So it feels a bit lost, and that's, for me, it feels like a very accurate reflection of how I felt after the film ended. Despite having a noteworthy cast, the performances in this film feel functional more than evocative, and Vijay Kumar is definitely honest and earnest in his performance, but as a wannabe politician, he doesn't really bring that charisma that's needed, that spark that makes us want to really root for this character or is really moved by this character. Pavel Navageethan gets a solid role, and it's in a space we're all so used to seeing him in, and he does it really well, and I think it comes naturally to him as well. But the rest of the performances are all very functional, for the lack of a better word. Even the craft in this film feels functional. It's in the sense that it's very, very specific to one function. It's very effective in the sense that it gets the job done, but it doesn't make us feel anything. However, the most strongest or the most consistent pillar in this film is Govind Vasantha, who I feel does the best job of bridging realism with the mainstream sensibility. His music eventually or very effectively underlines every emotion in the scene and brings the tension that we need to feel, even if the scene itself does not make us feel it. Cinema as an art form essentially has two components: what you are saying and how you are saying it. And for a film to be effective, both are important, but how you are saying things matters a bit more than what you are saying. In that sense, Election ticks a lot of the right boxes in what it wants to say. It's very well intentioned and it's inclusive, but it sort of loses its theme and its plot in how it is putting forth this narrative. It tries to bridge this gap between realistic and mainstream cinema, but is able to achieve this balance only momentarily and not for the duration of the entire film. So that's all I have to say about the film Election. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you very soon with another film. Until then, have fun at the movies.